Hello again, everyone. Marcus here. I review stuff, and today I'm doing things a little bit different. Today I'm reviewing an entire album. so, uh, as most of you watching this video probably know, I recently sat down and listened to the entirety of The Strokes' newest album, The New Abnormal. I then decided that I wanted to record a review of the album, and so here we are. I used to do this when I first started my channel, like 2 years ago, back when literally nobody was watching. And I'm always looking for things to sort of differentiate my channel from the like hundreds of other music reaction channels that are out there on YouTube. And so I felt like it was maybe time to bring back the full album reviews. It's something I haven't done in years, but I actually really enjoyed doing because it really gave me an opportunity to revisit songs that I had just reacted to. The thing with the reaction is it really is my pure, unfiltered thoughts right there in the moment. But then you get to sit with an album, sit with the song, and those opinions can often change. So it's always fun to kind of revisit and talk about how my feelings about a certain thing have kind of stayed the same or changed through over time. So with that said, if there's any other albums that you want me to give like the full listen treatment to, just let me know. But yeah, all right. Let's start off with a little bit of background about over the album. The New Abnormal is the Strokes' sixth studio album and the first since 2013. It has been praised as kind of a return to form for the Strokes by critics and fans alike. The consensus amongst I think most people is that it's sort of probably their best album since their 2001 debut. And which I think just from my research, I haven't really listened to everything from the Strokes, but from what I've seen and read, it's pretty high praise considering that Is This It was like we consider one of the best modern rock albums of all time. It seems like it. What I've read is that it's really influenced a lot of the modern rock and indie rock acts to kind of follow. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So. I wanted to point out that the name of the album comes from a quote by former governor of California, Jerry Brown, who was like commenting on the, I think, California wildfires of 2018, and said it was kind of like a new abnormal. I think maybe talking about climate change or just about how those fires had been happening for just over and over those last few years there. And so that's kind of where it gets its name. It just so happened, of course, they released it during 2020 and everything we know about, the COVID-19 pandemic. It was even more fitting that this was the title of the album and it released in 2020, of course. The New Abnormal was produced by Rick Rubin, and from everything I've read, his production was really crucial for this album. Part of that, 7-year break between albums was due to disagreements and turmoil within the band. However, according to the bassist, I hope I said this right, Nikolai Fraiture, Rubin insisted that the band kind of start hanging out together as a band, not just as friends or whatever, but like actually hang out and talk to each other like they kind of did back in the old days. In interviews, members of the band have kind of gone on to say that they've kind of started to get along much better, really enjoying each other and talking again and working together again. So I think this comes through in a lot of the transitions that you get throughout the album, especially at the end of some of the songs like The Adults Are Talking. You kind of get that little like in-studio break there. You have Ode to the Mets, the kind of famous Drums Please Fab. Just some of those little interactions. I think they really were purposeful with that to try to get you to feel like, okay, these are guys who like each other, not just tolerate each other to put out an album. On Questlove's podcast, Rick Rubin mentioned how the material that the Strokes had before he got involved was kind of some of just the roughest stuff that he'd ever seen. Some of the songs were literally just like voice memos on an iPhone or something. So from what I can gather from the things I've listened to and read, like I said, it was kind of easy for Rick to sort of grab that and run with it because he was going for a more like stripped down, return to form, back to basic sound for the band anyway. So I think having just kind of those rough sketches really helped him out a lot. And honestly, I think from what I've read, he really gets a lot of credit from both the band and from critics. He gets a lot of credit for really getting the band back to their roots and sort of exploring this retro sound that you hear a lot throughout the album. So Yeah, I wanted to give you guys that background, but now that we have a kind of a little bit of history for the album, I like to kind of follow up on each track of the album. You know, I've done a reaction, first time listen to all the tracks on this album, and you can find that. I'll put the playlist at the end of the video or something. But it's a playlist of all 9 songs from the album, me reacting to them. I didn't react to them like in one continuous listen, just because for a while I was just picking songs that people were requesting. People requested "Ode to the Mets," "Selfless," "Brooklyn Bridge" to chorus, and so I just kind of listened to those few in isolation. And it wasn't until recently that I decided to sit down and really just knock out the rest of the album. So you can find those videos. You'll notice definitely, especially by the length of my hair, that some of those were recorded months ago, and some were recorded more recently. So anyway, I really want to explore and kind of talk about each track on the album just very briefly. I really don't want this to be a super long review, but I do want to mention that throughout the album we're really going to see a few themes explored lyrically. Anybody who watches my channel knows I'm a big lyric guy. I like thinking and talking about lyrics. So in particular, we see the themes including reflecting on the past, lost relationships, and of course then moving on from those relationships and moving on from the past. It becomes very apparent when you listen to the album in its totality that there's a lot of themes that they're exploring here, and it all kind of has to do with the past, and sort of that nostalgia. So let's start with "The Adults Are Talking." Undoubtedly one of my favorite songs off of the album. I had noticed one thing about it. I'm actually looking at the Spotify numbers right now. This song has 89 million plays on Spotify, and like the next closest one is probably "Bad Decisions" with 42 million, I want to say. Yeah, that's the next closest one. So it's just like when I did that review, I was like, why is this song so much more popular than the others? But after listening to it and after getting a chance to kind of sit with it for a little bit, I understand why. This is a really, really good song. I absolutely love just sort of the flow of this song. I don't know, the excellent guitar work and the stellar vocals from Casablancas really drive it home for me. I really like the lyrics. To me, they're very timely and interesting, especially, I mentioned it in my reaction, but as a millennial, just constantly feeling talked over and ignored, it's just kind of, it's very like on the nose for me lyrically. And again, kind of jumping into that lyrical theme of sort of thinking about the past, thinking of the way that you've been treated, and thinking about how your experiences have shaped kind of what you know, but how that is often disregarded by others. So, stellar first track off the album, definitely like top tier for me on this one. Then it jumps into "Selfless." You actually get that little sort of, like I said at the beginning, that little interaction, I think, between Fab and Julian or somebody, just like kind of messing around, and then it jumps into "Selfless." So I will say, upon first listen of the song, it didn't really stand out to me too much, although I did like it. After a few more listens, I feel like it fits perfectly in the number 2 spot here on the album. It's a very easy listen, very easy to get into and just kind of jam out to. I love the transition. This is why I say it really belongs there in the 2 spot, because I love that transition from the previous song with that guitar. In the previous song, the adults are talking at the very end. You kind of get them kind of playing around on guitar, and then it leads real nicely into the actual guitar that starts off the song for "Selfless." So overall, great guitar work throughout, and I love that little solo they put in the front half of the song. Lyrically, again, very fitting with a lot of the themes that we see throughout the album, particularly Julian reflecting on his past relationships. I assume a lot of these songs are about Julian and his experiences, or it could just be some, generic, I guess, protagonist. But from what I've read and from what I've seen other people talk about it, it's Julian reflecting on his past. So that's what I get here. Then we jump into "Brooklyn Bridge" for two chorus. Honestly, I love this song upon first listen. It's a lot of fun with that retro 80s style synth and the faster pace coming off of "Selfless." Like I said, "Selfless" is a little more subdued, real chill, and then "Brooklyn Bridge" to chorus kind of picks it up a little bit. But I loved it when it first came out, and I still like it. It's still a fun listen, but I found that I appreciate it maybe a little bit less after hearing the rest of the album. There are just honestly so many great songs on this album that I kind of start to neglect this one, unfortunately. But when it comes on, I'm like, okay, I like this a lot. So I still really like the song. It's not as high up there for me after a couple of listens. Again, it's very in line with the rest of the album thematically, and it's obviously a song about, to me, looking back to the past. just like other songs on the album that approach this theme, it kind of does it without glorifying the past. It talks about like the 80s band, where'd they go, the 80s song, how did it go, and like back in the day was the beginning of the end, but that's false. It's sort of like saying like the past maybe isn't all that we thought it was at first. And it's just interesting that they talk about that 80s band, the 80s song, while really pulling from that 80s style. So still a really cool song, still very much enjoy it, but damn, there are just so many good songs on this album that it's kind of hard to stand out almost. So then it jumps into Bad Decision. I actually think this is a very brilliant sort of lineup here to put Brooklyn Bridge to chorus right in front of Bad Decisions, because really Bad Decisions is very, again, sort of retro sounding, but in a different way, and interpolates Billy Idol's Dancing With Myself, which I had to go back to and listen to and remind myself what that song sounded like, because it had been a while since I listened to it. But literally the moment it started playing, I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly like that same riff from Bad Decisions. So, but yeah, like it's to me brilliant to put Brooklyn Bridge and then followed by Bad Decisions. Again, this is why it's so great to actually get to sit down and listen to an album from start to finish, and really think about the artist's sort of creativity and the way that they saw the album going, So this is an excellent song. I honestly put it just under like The Adults Are Talking and Ode to the Mets as one of my favorites. Excellent work instrumentally. Again, I love that sort of coming of age retro style guitar that interpolates Billy Idol's Dancing With Myself. And honestly, I think it's very appropriate, because I personally consider this album to be sort of a coming of age for the Strokes. It's weird to think of that like 6 albums in. But really they explore, to me, a more mature sound and more mature lyrical themes throughout this album. So to me, it's very appropriate. And again, very appropriate coming off of Brooklyn Bridge, which really talks about the 80s bands and the 80s songs. And here they are sort of taking inspiration from an 80s icon and Billy Idol. So yeah, definitely very fitting, like I said, to come right off the back of Brooklyn Bridge. And again, yet another excellent song lyrically, fitting with the theme of the album. They sort of, to me, the song is about addressing that issue of just fans wanting the same thing from you, always wanting you to repeat that sound from your big hit, that kind of thing. But as a band, you want that creative freedom to just say, like, we want to make the music we want to make. So again, it's sort of looking back at the past and saying, like, yeah, we did that before we had success, but we're going to make a bad decision, maybe like career-wise, and do what we want to do and sort of justify that. Again, looking at the past without sort of glorifying the past, if you will. I think that comes up a lot throughout the album. From Bad Decisions, we jump into Eternal Summer, another one of my favorites off this album. Again, it's hard to say that just because there are so many that are so good, and many of you have told me that this is your favorite song as well. I think I remember reading that this might also be Fab's favorite song. Definitely one of the bandmates said it was their favorite song. I want to say it was Fab. I love Julian's vocal approach here. In the verses, he really gives off that sort of indie pop summer jam vibes, him on vocals, and then of course the instrumentation. It is very like easy to listen to and picture yourself like sitting out in the sun on a nice day. But then the chorus jumps into this like part that's just wholly inspired by Pink Floyd, and to me it sounds a little bit dark. Go from this like fun summery vibe to this almost like, again, Pink Floyd-esque like dark sort of instrumentation and vocals. I think it works really well here. It's a lot of fun to sing along to. And lyrically, the song explores the ideal of this like eternal bliss. But like the rest of the songs in the album, it recognizes this as sort of a fantasy. As time moves on, life presents you with ups and downs. It can't be perfect forever. So again, looking at the past and realizing, it's not all sunshines and daisies, right? Sometimes it gets a little dark. And I think this song encapsulates that perfectly, again, with that shift in style within the song. So a lot of fun here. Oh man, another favorite, At the Door. This is such a great song. It's a nice sort of palate cleanser coming off the faster paced songs before it. You have sort of Eternal Summer, which in a lot of ways is bright and poppy. You have Bad Decisions, which is a lot of fun, again, sort of bright, poppy. Brooklyn Bridge to chorus. I mean, those 3 songs give you a really fun listen, and then At the Door slows you way down. Again, nice little like palate cleanser. Like, I'm having fun, but let me see what else, what other side the Strokes have here. I was completely surprised by the fact that what I thought was a synthesizer was actually a digital guitar. It honestly made for a very interesting song instrumentally. It was actually fun to go back and listen to it with the knowledge that it was a digital guitar versus a synthesizer. The song is very emotional lyrically and continues to hit on the idea of sort of looking back at past relationships, particularly to the loneliness felt in the absence of meaningful relationships. And even though this song is really in line with a lot of the themes, I feel like this song and then the last half of the album really tells almost a cohesive story. Again, starting with this one of just being lonely in the absence of meaningful relationships. So then we jump into Why Are Sundays So Depressing? Again, one of my favorite tracks from the album, and it's a great album. Okay, it's easy to have a lot of favorites. I love the way it opens up with that guitar. The chorus is also very strong instrumentally, I feel like. Very relaxed and easy to listen to, both vocally and instrumentally. But when you get into those lyrics, it really continues with that theme of self-reflection and reflecting on the past. Again, as well as the loneliness of losing friends that we established back in At the Door. This album is very lyrically consistent. And again, I love the back half here where we talks about loneliness. Loneliness is in the absence of friendships, and then how those friendships are lost here in Why Are Sundays So Depressing? And then we transition into Not the Same Anymore, where upon first listen, I kind of commented, and you can go back and watch it in the reaction, that this was just kind of like a blow-off song for me. Not a bad song by any means, but it's not as exciting as the rest. And although it's definitely a little slower than most of the other tracks, this one has definitely grown on me a lot. Julian's melancholy vocals do a lot of heavy lifting in this song. I think his vocals are one thing that kind of softened me up to this song and made me realize just how great it was. And the instrumentation is equally just as melancholic and brooding, and it definitely works for me. So it's interesting because this is more of like an up and down, where you get At the Door, which is very like wow, and then Why Are Sundays So Depressing is a little more fun and kind of poppy to listen to, but then you go back down to Not the Same Anymore. It's very melancholic, and I love it. Lyrically, the song is crucial to the story being told in the back half of the album, because in this song, Julian fully accepts responsibility for the negative actions of his past and how those actions were likely the cause of his loneliness. So again, you start with At the Door, where I'm lonely. You go into Why Are Sundays So Depressing, where it's I'm lonely because I've lost my friends. And then you go into Not the Same Anymore, where it's I'm lonely because I lost my friends and I was the cause of that, which I think is brilliant. And then, even more brilliant, they finish out the album with Ode to the Mets. Although I absolutely love The Adults Are Talking, this very well may be my favorite track on the album. It's instrumentally and vocally interesting with a nice mix of synth and guitar work. Julian does an excellent job, I feel like, selling the emotion in this song with his delivery. I love the build-up to the second half of the song. I love how the song builds up. Lyrically, I think this is just a perfect track to wrap up the album. The outro of the song sees Julian sort of accept that it's time to move on from those past relationships and it's time to move forward with whoever's left. You really see that in these last few lyrics, the lyrics in the outro, where he says, "Gone now are the old times." You know, it's time to leave the past in the past. He says, "Old friends long forgotten." Again, going back to that, hey, I lost my friends. The old ways at the bottom of the ocean now has swallowed. The only thing that's left is us. So again, it's time to leave the past behind. We spent all album reminiscing on the past, thinking about the past, and now to sort of end the album, we're saying, you know, it's time to leave that all back in the past and move forward with whoever is left. You know, pick up the pieces and keep going. Fantastic way to end the album. Overall, my final grade for this album is an A+. Although there are some tracks I enjoy more than others, there isn't, to me, a single weak song on the album. It's an album that deserves to be listened to from start to finish, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that. But especially when you think about the lyrical themes that are explored throughout, just a fun album from start to finish, guys, honestly. And this is my first album from the Strokes that I've listened to from start to finish. So I definitely have to go back and check out the rest of their discography. Probably starting with 2001's Is This It? So anyway, that's going to be it for the review. Loved the album, and I loved getting to do this thing that's a little bit different, you know, taking it track by track and then kind of doing a full album review at the end of it. Was just a lot of fun. If you guys want to see more stuff like this, let me know. Like I said, I really enjoyed doing it. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. If you enjoyed the music, if you enjoyed the review, go check out the music, go support the artists, go listen to them wherever you can. If you want to support me, just all the normal stuff you do on YouTube, like and subscribe and comment with those albums or those songs that you want me to check out. I'll be happy to do so. So again, thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.